the tunnel, on the way to New York, going through the tunnel, on the way to New York. We're going up north, y'all. Hey, this is kind of dope as hanging with my bestie. Yeah. You know I'm on her lefty.
I came home and I had a woman in my house and I pulled out my gun and I shot and she's not moving.
This is 51-year-old Stephanie Alexander, a Charlotte woman with zero criminal history, who on July 18, 2023, would call 911 at 5:21 in the morning to report that she had just shot someone dead in her home. And the victim? 25-year-old Tyra Crosby, a woman Stephanie claims was a stranger who had broken into her house. But here's what is very sus. Crosby's mother has an 8-minute voicemail recording from her daughter's phone that captures the sounds of beating, torture, and death threats before the gunshots rang out. But before we get to that disturbing audio evidence and the courtroom battle that would follow, let me take you back to where this nightmare began. Let's go back to July 17, 2023. It's evening in Charlotte, North Carolina. Tyra Crosby meets a man named Albert Alexander at a local gambling arcade on North Tryon Street. They talk, connect, and according to surveillance footage and GPS data from Crosby's phone, Albert invites her back to his place. Here's the critical detail that changes everything. Tyra had absolutely no idea Albert was married. The GPS data would later prove this was Crosby's first and only visit to that home on Porter Street. She wasn't in some long-time affair or stalking a married man. Now, here's where the timeline gets crucial. Stephanie Alexander worked the night shift and wasn't supposed to be home at 5 in the morning. She returned early for a class assignment, walked into her house, and immediately noticed something was wrong. Unfamiliar clothes on the couch, strange sounds coming from the room, and then she saw her husband, Albert, with another woman. What happened next quickly escalated violently. According to Stephanie's own 911 call, she grabbed her gun, demanded to know who was there, and fired toward the bathroom door where Crosby had fled. But here's where this story takes its darkest turn. Albert Alexander, the husband, later told police he tried to grab the gun from his wife. He claimed he thought Stephanie was just trying to scare Crosby, not actually kill her. A woman who, by all accounts, had no idea she was about to become collateral damage in someone else's marriage. By the time Charlotte-Mecklenburg police arrived at that Porter Street home, Tyra Crosby was already dead on the floor. She'd been shot and there was nothing medics could do. She was 25 years old, and according to her mother, Tanya Hoskins, she was so much more than the headlines that would reduce her to a side chick.
She was so spontaneous, always caring, so loving to me, and I miss that about her.
Tyra Crosby was born on August 28, 1997. Her mother describes her as outgoing, spontaneous, caring, and nurturing. She had started her own clothing line and was building a life. And on that July night, she made what she thought was a simple decision: to go home with someone she'd just met. This is a decision millions of people make every day, but this time, it would cost Tyra everything. Now, here's where Stephanie Alexander's story starts to crumble under scrutiny. In that 911 call, portions of which were released to the public, Stephanie can be heard saying she came home and found a woman in her house.
How old is she? I have no idea. I don't even know the woman. She's inside my house in the hallway on the floor. Is she flat on her back? No, she's on her stomach. I can try to move her on her back. My husband told me don't touch her. Oh God, what did I do? What did I do?
She's framing this as a home invasion, and this is where the evidence becomes absolutely crucial. Because what Stephanie didn't know was that Tyra Crosby had accidentally pocket-dialed her mother, and that call was still recording. 8 minutes of audio that Tanya Hoskins would later describe as her daughter being beat, tortured, and voices in the background threatening to kill her. Listen to how Tyra's mother describes what she heard on that recording.
I'm angry, I'm upset that for her to go from one emotion to the next, you get on the 911 call and I have a call recorded on my phone where you're beating my child.
According to that audio evidence, there was a confrontation. There was time, threats, and then there were gunshots. But Stephanie's 911 call tells a very different story. Listen to how she sounds.
Oh God, what did I do? What did I do?
Criminal defense attorney Mark Jatone, who wasn't involved in the case but analyzed the 911 audio for WCCB Charlotte, noted that Stephanie was shaking beyond belief on that call, suggesting the voluntary manslaughter charge seemed appropriate based on what he heard. But he also said something crucial. Just because it's a heat of passion situation doesn't always mean manslaughter is the correct charge. Time is one of the main factors that we deal with between manslaughter and murder, because time can equal premeditation. How much time passed between Stephanie finding Tyra and pulling the trigger?
She's shaken beyond belief. You can hear that, you hear the things she's saying. It certainly seems to be the charge that you would assume is correct. Now, the tricky part is just because it's a heat of passion situation doesn't always mean manslaughter is the correct charge.
Charlotte-Mecklenburg police arrested Stephanie Alexander at the scene and booked her into jail at 1:50 p.m. on July 18th, where she was charged with voluntary manslaughter. The charge that acknowledges you killed someone, but argues it happened in the heat of passion, without premeditation. Her bond was set at $250,000. And then something happened that would enrage Tyra Crosby's entire family. By 8:33 p.m. that same night, less than 16 hours after she shot Tyra dead, Stephanie Alexander posted bond and walked out of jail.
If me or you kill somebody, we have to stand the consequence, and we can't vow out on a crime of passion.
But Tanya Hoskins wasn't about to let this go quietly. She had the audio evidence of the murder, and she was determined to make sure investigators heard it every second of it.
Hunter, this mom doesn't want the accused shooter to end up with just a slap on the wrist.
No, she doesn't, Hannah. Stephanie Alexander is due in court here later this week, charged with second-degree murder. Prosecutors say she shot and killed Tyra Crosby. Now, I spoke with Crosby's mother earlier today, and she tells me this case is not what it seems.
The holiday decor can be deceiving.
We spent hours on the phone just talking.
It's hard for Tanya Hoskins to get into the Christmas spirit, knowing her daughter's spirit is all she has left to hold on to.
Around the holidays, it's really hard.
Police say 25-year-old Tyra Crosby was shot and killed at a home on Porter Street in July of last year. The woman who loved fashion, even started her own clothing line, gone in an instant.
She was so spontaneous, always caring, so loving to me. And I miss that about her.
Hoskins says her daughter went to a man's home that fateful night, not knowing he had a wife, Stephanie Alexander, who lived there too. Police say Alexander walked in and shot and killed Crosby.
This lady killed her in cold blood with no remorse.
Hoskins just can't understand why, and says her daughter would have never gone to that house uninvited.
The man invited her there. She didn't break and enter. She didn't just come unannounced. I can't see how she would take an innocent child's life instead of allowing her to leave her home. Because at that point, the man brought her there.
On Thursday, court records show Alexander will be arraigned on a second-degree murder charge. Crosby's mother hopes the court will hear all sides as she fights for her late daughter.
As strong as all you know. You have to keep going.
And that strength has certainly gotten Tanya Hoskins through a lot. She tells me this is her third child that she has lost in a tragic way. One was killed in an accident. Now 2 of her children have died by gun violence. I did reach out to the suspect's attorney earlier today, but I have not heard back. Live at the...
Tanya provided the audio recording to Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, hoping it would change everything. Tanya wasn't shy about what she wanted. She wanted Stephanie charged with first-degree murder. She wanted the justice system to recognize that this wasn't a crime of passion. It was, in her words, murder in cold blood. She told reporters, "I am hopeful that once CMPD is able to go through the recording that I have, a new charge comes out. Because right now she's charged with the lowest form of murder." And she made a vow, "I won't stop until there's another charge." While Tanya fought for justice, the community rallied around Tyra's memory. On July 23, 2023, family and friends gathered for a candlelight vigil at Camp Green Park.
Tonight, the community coming together to remember 25-year-old Tyra Crosby.
Dozens showed up and lit candles. They released balloons and shared stories about the vibrant young woman whose life had been cut short. The vigil was organized by Mothers of Murder Towards Strength, a group that supports families who've lost loved ones to violence. One attendee captured Tyra's spirit perfectly.
He was the light of every situation, you know what I'm saying? Your head down, she gonna make sure you lift it up, you know. She prayed every day.
She was beautiful. Her soul, her spirit, inside and out. She was a precious angel.
But beneath the tributes and the grief, there was anger. Because while the community mourned Tyra, Stephanie Alexander was home, out on bond, awaiting trial.
CMPD says Stephanie Alexander came home and killed Crosby. Her family tells WCNC Charlotte she was invited over by the husband. Wake Up Charlotte's Richard Devane joins us now, and Richard, Alexander now out of jail on bond.
That is correct, and as she's out of jail on bond awaiting her trial for voluntary manslaughter, the family and friends of Miss Crosby are remembering her life, not the way it ended, but the life she lived.
It's a lot of words to describe her.
Family and friends sharing stories and memories of a life cut short. Dozens came together Sunday to remember 25-year-old Tyra Crosby, shot and killed in the early morning hours last Tuesday in a house on Porter Street in East Charlotte. Police say Stephanie Alexander came home and found Crosby inside and shot her. Crosby's family said she was invited to the house by Alexander's husband. Alexander arrested for voluntary manslaughter. The vigil held by Mothers of Murdered Offspring for those who knew the 25-year-old, many of them saying she was kind and loving.
She was beautiful. Her soul, her spirit, inside and out.
She gonna be our angel on our shoulder.
She always knew what to say.
Lighting candles and prayers and releasing balloons, trying to deal with the pain of her death, including her mother, who was the last to light a candle in her memory.
Just to see how many lives she touched and the love that she had in her heart.
Yeah, and again, that ceremony of celebration of life will take place today at noon. We're in West Charlotte. Richard Devane for Wake Up Charlotte.
Then something happened that made the entire neighborhood uneasy. 9 days after Tyra's death, on July 27, 2023, shots were fired into the same Porter Street home around 2 a.m. One person was injured. Police responded but found no definitive connection to Tyra's case, but the timing was impossible to ignore. Neighbors expressed heightened safety concerns. The Alexander home had become ground zero for violence twice in less than 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Tanya's advocacy was paying off. On August 3, 2023, a Mecklenburg County grand jury reviewed the evidence, including that 8-minute voicemail, and upgraded the charges against Stephanie Alexander to second-degree murder. This was huge because second-degree murder carries significantly harsher penalties than voluntary manslaughter. It suggests the killing wasn't just a heat-of-the-moment reaction, but involved malice and intentional harm. For Tanya, it was vindication, proof that the audio evidence showed something far more sinister than Stephanie's 911 call suggested. But even with upgraded charges, Tanya wanted more. She wanted first-degree murder, which requires proof of premeditation. She wanted the world to know that Tyra was lured to that house, that she was innocent, that she didn't know Albert was married, and that she died for a situation she never should have been in.
This lady killed her in cold blood with no remorse.
Let's talk about the other person in this story who's barely been mentioned, Albert Alexander, the husband. The man who started this entire chain of events by inviting Tyra to his home. He was present during the shooting and tried to wrestle the gun away from his wife, and yet he faced 0 charges. This is something Tanya Hoskins emphasized repeatedly.
The man invited her there. She didn't break and enter. She didn't just come unannounced.
For over a year, the case wound through the legal system. Stephanie Alexander remained out on bond, living her life while Tyra Crosby lay in a grave. Tanya Hoskins had lost her 3rd child to violence, 1 killed in an accident, 2 by guns. The weight of that grief is unimaginable.
She tells me this is her 3rd child that she has lost in a tragic way. 1 was killed in an accident, Now 2 of her children have died by gun violence. I did reach out to the suspect's attorney earlier today, but I have not heard back.
Then, on December 5th, 2024, Stephanie Alexander appeared in court for what everyone expected would be a trial on the second-degree murder charge. But trials are unpredictable, and juries can be swayed. Evidence can be interpreted in different ways, and Stephanie's defense team had something powerful on their side. She had 0 criminal history. She was a 51-year-old woman with no record of violence, and she could argue that walking in to find her husband with another woman triggered a momentary loss of control. So instead of going to trial, Stephanie Alexander pleaded guilty to manslaughter. The charge was downgraded from second-degree murder back to manslaughter, though sources differ on whether it was voluntary or involuntary manslaughter. Judge Bell handed down the sentence, 60 to 84 months in prison. That's 5 to 7 years for taking a life. In court, Stephanie apologized to Crosby's family. She expressed remorse and acknowledged what she'd done. But for Tanya Hoskins, it wasn't nearly enough. The woman she believed had murdered her daughter in cold blood was getting what felt like a slap on the wrist. And then, in a moment that encapsulates just how raw emotions still were, a physical altercation broke out in the courtroom. Albert Alexander got into a scuffle with one of Tyra's family members. Multiple Mecklenburg County deputies had to intervene. Even at sentencing, even after a plea deal, the anger and grief were too much to contain. Tanya Hoskins spoke publicly after the sentencing, and her frustration was palpable. Tanya's words echoed the sentiment she'd shared from the beginning. Human life means nothing anymore. The plea deal, in her view, confirmed that the system didn't value Tyra's life the way it should have, that you could kill someone, claim heat of passion, and be back on the streets in 5 years. But here's where this case becomes even more complicated. Because while Tanya sees cold-blooded murder, the legal system sees something different. Voluntary manslaughter acknowledges that Stephanie killed Tyra, but argues there was no premeditation. In the 8-minute audio recording that Tanya describes as torture, it's not clear how much weight it carried in the final plea negotiations or whether it was determined to be admissible at trial. As of today, no appeals or further legal actions have been reported. Stephanie Alexander is serving her sentence. Albert Alexander has remained largely silent publicly. And Tanya Hoskins is left to grieve a daughter who went out one night, met someone at an arcade, and never came home. This case raises so many questions that don't have easy answers. Was this a crime of passion or premeditated murder? Should Albert Alexander have faced charges for his role in creating this situation? How do we value a life when the justice system reduces it to a 5 to 7 year sentence? And what about all those viral posts that made this seem like Stephanie walked in on her husband in bed and fired instantly, when the evidence suggests something much more drawn out and disturbing? Let me know what you think in the comments section. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.